I do think that the narrative for so long was teachers aren't respected. Nobody listens to teachers. And then this situation was put in front of us, and anyone who was attached to that narrative kind of really dug their heels in.
Hello, hello, all those beautiful faces. How we doing? How we doing? Stephanie checking in with some more of that class disruption. And today I have a conversation for you with a high school special education teacher from Long Island, New York, Dori. But before we get into it, I need you to hit that like button. If you're new here, I love that beautiful face. Hit that subscribe button so you can see more of this beautiful face, and drop a comment down below. Let us know where you're checking in from, what kind of content you want to see, what issues you want to talk about, and share this video, because these conversations, especially like the difficult conversation we're going to be having here today, are the ones that we need to share and spread and say, hey, it's okay to talk about these things, and help build up that courage like Dori did today. And make sure you're following Dori at The Balanced Teacher on Instagram. She's putting out great content specifically for teachers about how to maintain that balance in your life, from exercising, eating, to just taking a step back. I know she always keeps me in balance because I'm like, oh wait, let me get off social media and go find some balance in my life. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Dori. Dori, how we doing?
Good, good. Thanks for having me. So
Yeah,
happy.
thanks for joining me on our spring break. I appreciate it.
Yes, very exciting. Came
And
back Preston.
yes, exactly. And I think that's kind of like what you're all about, right? We started talking about some of the more recent stuff with open schools and all that, but I follow your page. And so just tell me a little bit about, who you are, what you do on social media, what you're all about.
Absolutely. So I am a high school education teacher, a special education teacher. So I have been teaching for about 10 years now. And I flew by the way. Like, I can't believe I can even say that. But
Okay.
yeah, I started my Instagram page, The Balanced Teacher, actually during lockdown, right? During the pandemic. Yeah. Because I had, once we all like slowed down, right? We were put on a forced pause. I kind of realized that I had this message to share with fellow teachers, that we didn't have to wait to be told to pause, right, and take care of ourselves. And I don't know, I just felt like this calling to kind of put myself out there and you know connect with the community of teachers and share what I've learned, not just in this last year, but over the last like 2 or 3 years of my own approach to education and self-care, and how those two totally intertwine
I
interconnect.
love it. So this is your first, like, you're still kind of a newbie. I guess we're going on to almost a year of being in Twitter, Instagram, or Twitter, Instagram, teacher Instagram.
Yes,
Teacher
absolutely.
Twitter is a little bit more hardcore.
Yeah, I it's so funny because I'm trying to get into the Twitter verse, but it's very intimidating. And right now I'm kind of getting into a groove on Instagram, so I'm just keeping it
Yeah. Yeah,
now.
I started on Instagram as well, and then I was like, I don't really like Twitter, but then I like got all into Twitter, and so I'm trying to find that balance. I think in many ways it's super empowering to have this community, and I like the approach that you take to self-care. Some of the self-care I think can be a little bit like, oh, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but not necessarily very empowering, kind of taking like a deficit view or like a victim view. So I think that finding that balance and being able to advocate and be empowering goes right along with what I'm trying to do over here with class disruption, albeit a little bit less gently, maybe sometimes.
No, you know what? I We're very much in line, because so much of that self-care that I talk about is about finding your voice, which
Mm,
is really about empowering yourself
mm.
to set those boundaries, or speak up for what you need, and just having confidence in your voice as a person and as an educator too. And I will definitely say, like, stepping into this teacher gram community has helped me find my own and appreciate all of the other voices too. And it's turned into a really awesome conversation and
Mm,
collaboration. So I'm loving
right.
it.
And that's definitely what I want. I know sometimes I can come off with some hot takes or, some things that are a little bit edgy maybe, but I'm definitely all about that conversation. I just happen to like really like to set the parameters out wide. And so I'm super happy that I got you on here because like I said, we've been going back and forth a little bit lately. And my posts have pretty much, had the focus of opening schools and really kind of pushing back against a lot of these restrictions. And I just want you to kind of talk about from your own perspective. We were talking about this a little bit before we got on about, why teachers in general and also you specifically, you said, have struggled with coming out on this issue. What were some of the things that you thought about as you were coming onto this podcast?
Yeah, so I think that one of the biggest challenges we've had over the last year is the inability to have an actual conversation about where people are coming from. And so one thing I've struggled with personally is putting my opinion out there, right? And being afraid of insulting people or making them feel like they're wrong for how they've been approaching the last year or handling the last year. And that's never my intention, right? I don't want to ever tell somebody you're wrong because you don't agree with me, or because I don't want somebody to tell me I'm wrong because I don't agree with them. It should be a conversation and trying to get to a place where we can at least try to understand where the other person is coming from. So once I reframed that in the sense that this is a conversation, and really all I want to do is voice my opinion but get others to start asking questions, whether it's asking questions about what's going on around them, right? Asking questions about why are we keeping schools closed, what's the end game here, but then also asking questions of yourself, right? Being self-reflective and figuring out, well, why am I being silent, or why am I afraid to speak out, or why am I so afraid, what am I actually afraid of? And I loved that you used the word empower before, because that's that's a huge thing. I feel like so much of what's happening is people's power is being taken away from them, in one way or another, and that we have to start reflecting on that.
And I think it really does feed into a lot of the dynamics, generally in society, but specifically within the teaching world. We're caught in between what we got into the profession for and kind of just being able to maintain. And and at some point though, it's like, when does you just trying to maintain actually become complicity in the system? Right? When does it come on to us as the teachers in our classroom to just say enough is enough? And so yeah, I hope that having conversations like this, you know, y- you don't need to always go push yourself. You don't need to be out there as I am, but we need to start having these conversations. So again, thank you for coming on here and be willing to have this conversation.
Absolutely. And thank you for providing the platform to do it, right? If you weren't you and you weren't putting your voice out there, then I wouldn't have the opportunity to have this conversation. So it all comes together. There's that balance, right?
And so I want you to tell a little bit more of your experience over this past year, because we're not too far from each other. Actually, I could probably just go out to the shore and look across, and we'd be looking across at each other. Um, and so, what is it like just across the bay there? How have schools been going there? How has it compared to what you've seen across the country?
Yeah, so I am in Suffolk County, so I'm on Long Island. And we, since September, from day one, we have been open. We started off with a a hybrid model in the sense that we had 50% of the students in person at one time.
Okay.
So basically, students were either in group 1 or group 2. So you were either in person Monday, Tuesday, or in person Thursday, Friday, depending on your name, your last
Yeah,
name.
that's almost exactly what we had at my school as well.
Yeah. So, and then we always had Wednesdays at the high school level. We
Mhm.
always had Wednesdays virtual. So everybody was virtual. And then obviously students and their families had the option to be fully virtual, never step foot in the school. And so what my district has actually been doing is systematically bringing more and more students in. So I think it was sometime in November, they brought seniors back first.
Okay.
So, and I thought that was great because they're not going to have another chance to
Right.
the building. So I thought that was a good call. A little bit after that, we then had students with IEPs. So actually, our life skills students they were always in school, even on
Okay.
Wednesdays. Yep.
Good, good.
So they were kind of picking and choosing what groups would come back with more and more face-to-face instruction. And now that we're in the spring, they have brought back 11th graders, they have brought back 10th graders, and now I think when we go back, they're bringing back the 9th graders. And so I believe what's going to end up happening is once we don't have that group 1 or group 2 anymore, you're either in school or fully virtual. We're actually going to take away that Wednesday. And so your in-person students will be 5 days a week. And then if you're fully virtual, you're fully virtual.
All right. Okay. So it seems, and this was actually a plan that I had been kind of advocating for in New York City. Maybe not necessarily in that order, but just like, okay, let's start with what we have and then let's figure out how to systematically bring them back. And it seems like you guys had success with each round.
Yeah.
And you're probably able to work out those kinks both as a full system and then you as a teacher, because are you teaching concurrently? So do you have kids in your class and on screen?
Yep.
Okay.
And, that was a challenge at first.
Hmm.
And truthfully, you kind of adjust, you get used to it. Um, but
Figure it out.
yeah, you figure it out, right? You pivot.
Yeah.
However, I will say that it's like, I don't want to put that out there and think like, oh, it's fine, we can do it,
Right.
because it's not best practice. You can never put an even amount of attention on either group. So no matter what, your one group is missing out on your attention as a teacher.
Right.
So it was funny too, because when we first started that in September, we were so worried about the virtual kids that I realized I had kids in front of me, but I was talking to a computer screen
Yeah, yeah.
100% of the time. And so now I don't want to say it's reversed, because you definitely learn how to bounce back and forth.
Right.
But that's the problem. You're bouncing back and forth. And I would prefer to eliminate that completely. But
Yeah.
like you said, we're systematically getting there. We'll see what the next school year brings.
And I appreciate that framing of it. I think that again, like you said, it's not ideal. It's not something that we want to normalize. But I think that in the context of this situation, the narrative that it's like this worst thing ever and it totally runs teachers down, to me, I think, again, that's kind of goes back to this thing that happened pre-pandemic where teachers, they so often take this kind of victim stance. Like it's almost like an abusive relationship. Like I was in an abusive relationship and that's what you do. Like you complain about how it's bad, you get into this big fight, and then you go crawling back to them like they have the answer, you know? So yeah, we have to help break this cycle. So I'm so glad to hear that you and your students in your school are doing well. And the question is like, how do we get that out there more? Like where's the coverage on these success stories?
I don't see it. Not in mainstream anyway. I
Yeah.
think that's why accounts like yours are so important,
Right,
because
but even on teacher Twitter, like where are the other teachers at in this?
yeah, you know what? I think it goes back to that conversation piece. I think that the the teachers that are in that space of victimhood
Mm.
are so rooted in that and it's been a long time, like you said. You know, I still kind of look at what's going on, and I do think that the narrative for so long was teachers aren't respected. Nobody listens to teachers. And then this situation was put in front of us, and anyone who was attached to that narrative kind of really dug their heels in
Mm,
because they could, because they
mm.
could
They
say,
finally had some power, sticking power,
yeah.
which is
And I think it's had an opposite effect. I think that not only does it make us look like victims in a certain respect, but then we're really we're hurting the kids
mm,
by keeping them out of school. You know, yes, their families should have the choice. I'm not taking that away. I'm not saying everybody should be in full blown, forget the mitigation strategies. You know, all of those are still important, but by keeping kids out of school, by saying we need X, Y, and Z done before we can come back, I just don't think it holds water anymore.
yeah.
We
Like,
have
you don't
proof.
need to fix every problem ever, right? And I think at some point it's like you have to start doing to do more. Um,
Yeah,
so
great.
question about the unions out there, because in New York City right now, the big thing is we have this two case rule. And we're also in the talks about moving from 6 feet, which is the state guidance in New York City, or New York State is still officially 6 feet. And we're trying to get them to move it to 3 feet. Technically, the city can override them, but we're basically waiting on Mulgrew, who thinks 3 feet is weird. Like, that's pretty almost a quote. He said it was weird. So we're really beholden to unions, not in the same way where these smaller unions where it gets real personal. Not that I haven't had personal attacks made on me by union members on Facebook groups, on Twitter, this and that. But what's the union dynamics out there?
So each district has their own union. So it could change from district to district in terms of dynamics. So I can only really speak on my own personal
Right.
experience.
Yeah.
It's not a blanket statement for all of Long Island, but they have worked hard to make sure that there are mitigation strategies. We've had the plexiglass on all of the desks,
Mm,
which is truthfully very weird. You know, I've sat in them. It feels like you're in a fishbowl. The kids don't like them at all, but you know, it is what it is. If that's what it takes to get us back in person, then let's do it. So
plexiglass breaking party at the end of the year.
right? Hopefully sooner than later we can have that party. So they've worked hard to make sure that our teachers do feel as safe as possible. But to my knowledge, I don't think there was ever a push to keep schools closed.
Hmm.
So, but again, I could be wrong. I can't say I'm the most active in terms of keeping up with that.
Yeah.
You know, I pay attention to what they put out there, and I can't recall ever seeing a conversation where, oh, they might not open school. I think
Right.
that
Like, it seems like they've been engaging in good faith
yes,
in the trial. Okay, so it's so in the one hand, it's frustrating because you're just like, this should be easy. Everybody should just open schools. And but at the same time, I think it is important to have local control and really have that community aspect to schools. And I think in a place like I don't know exactly how big. I think Suffolk County is bigger than other places, but it also kind of probably still has like those small town vibes a little bit.
definitely. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
from one end of Suffolk to the other and be, you know, you go out east and you feel like you're on vacation because you feel like, you know, you're out in the country. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
definitely a big mix of different demographics and different environments.
Yeah. I think in those smaller communities, sometimes you can achieve more of that cohesion where in a place like New York City, it's just like so many schools and so many different things and so many needs. So it's like, what is that balance between that centralized control and that like district level, school level control? I think that is a big conversation, especially as this has brought up the school choice and funding that we're going to have to continue to have.
Yeah, it spills over into so many different things. And what we're dealing with now and the decisions or indecisions will have ramifications and spill over into other things for sure in the future.
Yeah. So where do you see this going? Like if and maybe we have two different ways that this can go that you see. Like if the best of things happens, or what are the some of the things that we can look out for? Like how do you see this playing out with all your years of experience? I mean, you have twice as many years as me. Your view is twice as high. So I want to know, what do you see happening here?
So it that's a tough question to answer because like you said, there are so many different types of environments in different districts. I think that what you said earlier, I'm 45 minutes away from Manhattan. So to think that I have been in a classroom every day since September and things are just reopening in certain boroughs, right? In the DOE, I think that you know why is that? Why is it so different when there's less than an hour in between us? And obviously, like you said, there are different things to think about from Suffolk County to the city. And those things should be thought about. But at this point, a year later, I think we need to be looking at how can we get kids back into school. And where do I see this going? It's like I said, it's so tough to answer. But what I will say is that we are at a tipping point.
Hmm.
And my biggest message, I would say, is if your opinion on all of this is coming from a place of fear, then I would implore you to think about your own reaction to this. And so it's a year later. I don't think this virus is going away, and it's not. We have to learn how to live with it, and that that can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. But we should have the choice on how we approach that, on what's best for us, what's best for our families, and that should include kids going into school. I don't think that should be off the table. And I've seen it. I teach 10th and 11th graders, and last year I had 10th graders. So I was able to see how those students operate, pre-COVID, what kind of kids they were like and what kind of students they were like. And then I had them again as 11th graders in this hybrid setting. And some are fully virtual, some have, you know, taken every opportunity to get into school. And there is a massive impact that we are having on these kids, and our decisions or our silence, like you put it, can have a huge impact on them as students, as people, and keeping them out. There's no way around it. It's a negative effect.
Yeah. So and I see it too. I have, kids, they come back to school and they can do the happy go lucky thing. Hey miss, what's going on? And then you sit down and talk to them, they're like, miss, I was I was gonna kill myself. I was, oh haha, doing drugs, like making jokes like that where it's like kind of jokes, but at the same time, that there's something to it.
Yeah.
Um and and it's one of those things that there's not a ticker on our TV for every time that, a kid hurts themselves, every time a kid does drugs or something, which all that has gone up during the pandemic. So I think that by not doing anything, we are actually doing harm.
Yeah.
And so we need to figure out how to get these kids back in school, figure out how to have these conversations from a place where what you said in the beginning about how you try to say something and sometimes your words are going to impact somebody in a way that you don't intend. But we need to figure out how to get through that and find the common ground. Now, are there things that are like obviously cross the line? Yeah. But we have to kind of assume that good faith, and we have to say, okay, this is how it felt to me, but maybe there's another angle to this. Maybe they're trying to get to something here, and where can we agree and where can I push back on them?
Yeah, it really, like you said, it comes down to the conversation. And like I've said, this is not a way to tell anybody they're wrong for feeling a certain way or for making certain decisions over the last year. It's really about opening up the conversation and talking about how we can move forward, and move forward in a way where we're not rooted in so much fear and giving our power away.
Hmm.
Because that's one of, not just in schools, just in society in general, I think that a lot of that is happening, and where almost people are kind of waiting for another entity to tell them when it's okay or what to do, and we actually have the power in ourselves to make those decisions, and we should all root into that and move forward in that.
And a good way to do that is to make sure that you're following Dori on Instagram. I think she's on Twitter too, but she said that Instagram is her main way. She's always putting together inspirational posts where I'm like, oh yeah, I should go work out. Oh yeah, I should eat healthy. Oh yeah, I'm getting a little crazy. Let me calm down. And I expect you, to keep me in check, keep me in line if I'm going too crazy. Cause I like to, my tagline is to stay foolish. So these are real serious topics, real serious conversations. But at the end of the day, we got to be able to laugh and have some fun. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate you coming through. Everybody make sure you go follow Dori, and we'll be staying in contact.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Just such a lovely human being. And she's not too far from me either. Like we could link up hopefully one day, go to the beach, grab a drink, whatever. Cause that's what I love about social media. You meet people from all over the United States, all over the world, and then you meet people who are close by. And I met up with people from near and far. And I love it, bringing that online experience offline, and just talking about these difficult issues, having that courage. And so I hope that this episode does give more teachers courage, not just speaking out about open schools, but which I obviously hope that you do, because right, schools are essential, but all different sorts of topics. And there's so much going on in the United States and around the world today. Emotions are heightened. So many important issues that we need to be talking about, and we can't be scared to talk about. We can't be scared like, oh no, they're gonna think I'm, I said something wrong, or they're going to think a certain way about me because I said this. Right? We have to go in with those good intentions and say, hey, you said this thing. I'm not really so sure about that, but let's talk about it. And sometimes even it's not about talking the issues. It's just about going out and doing real things with real people, and then realizing, hey, we actually have a lot in common. So when we do go and sit back down, we can sort through these philosophical differences and find that common ground. So just some thoughts coming off that episode. Again, make sure you follow Dori. She's a great follow on Instagram. And make sure you're finding that balance in your life. Right? We got to have these real serious class disruption conversations. But then we also got to stay foolish, y'all.